For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every one that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
Andre, we believe, though we cannot yet prove, that our multiverse of universes is 11-dimensional. So think of this 11-dimensional arena. And in this arena, there are bubbles that float, and the skin of the bubble represents an entire universe. So we're like flies trapped on flypaper. We're on the skin of a bubble. It's a 3-dimensional bubble. The 3-dimensional bubble is expanding, and that's called the Big Bang Theory. And sometimes these bubbles can bump into each other. Sometimes they can split apart, and that, we think, is the Big Bang. So we even have a theory of the Big Bang itself.
Actually, in a universe from nothing, you theorize that religion as it is now could disappear in the span of one generation. But given the fact that over 80% of the global population practices a religion right now, how would that happen, and what changes do you think it would have on society?
Well, what I was just pointing out is that we're always one generation away from change. The point is that our children can change the world. And the example I used, I think, was gay marriage, which, you know, a generation ago, you might have thought it would have never been possible. And now kids my daughter's age just don't even understand what the issue is. No matter what people in Washington are debating about, the next generation has already said it's not an issue, it's over, forget about it. And the point is the same could be true with religion. What worries me is that we steer away from talking about religion because we're kind of afraid to offend. But what we should be doing in talking in schools is not steering away from talking about religion, but presenting it as comparative history and pointing out what's wrong, not being afraid to point out things that are just in disagreement with science, and planting the seeds of critical thinking. We don't hesitate to do that in any other area of academic thinking. We want our kids to do critical thinking, but somehow we feel when it comes to religion, we should be hands-off. And it seems to me if we encourage planting the seeds of doubt in children to do critical thinking, then it's quite possible, at least in the Western world, that as is already happening, religion is already decreasing monotonically. The number of people who say they're religious is decreasing. And we could, in principle, by encouraging kids to ask questions and not trying to brainwash them, get rid of religion in a generation if we so wanted.
Up until the 1920s, everyone thought the universe was essentially static and unchanging in time. Then it was discovered that the universe was expanding. Distant galaxies were moving away from us. This meant they must have been closer together in the past. If we extrapolate back, we find they must have all been on top of each other about 15 billion years ago. This was the Big Bang, the beginning of the universe.
Thus saith God the Lord, He that created the heavens and stretched them out, He that spread forth the earth, and that which cometh out of it, He that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk therein.
Christopher, what is your explanation for the beginning of time, space, and matter out of nothing?
Well, we don't know. I remember being asked by one of my children once, they said, well, what was there at the Big Bang. And I said, well, you have to imagine, this shows how poverty-stricken our own vocabulary is, and I suspect how poverty-stricken our own capacity is. In other words, I think there are some things, not that we don't understand or know, but that we cannot. So we're reduced to sort of primitive images. But I said, suppose you could picture all of matter, the whole of matter, condensed into, I got this from Hawking, I think, one of his colleagues, condensed into something like a very small, dense black suitcase of the kind you see people carrying money in crime thrillers. And it's about to fly open. That's what you'd have to be able, and everything that's ever going to be is inside that. That was the best I could do, and I don't think many people could do, if I say it myself, that much better. But I was completely unhorsed because the kids said, well, what was outside the suitcase? And I thought, oh, well, I can't do that. And I don't know anyone who can.
Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear.
Question for Richard Dawkins. The Big Bangers believe that once there was nothing, then suddenly, poof, the universe was created from a Big Bang. If I have nothing in the palm of my hand, close my fingers, speak the word bang, then open my fingers again, still I find there is nothing there. I ask you to explain to us in layman's terms how it is that something as enormous as the universes came from nothing.
Now, it is very mysterious how the universe came into being. It's a deeply mysterious and interesting question.
And can I just interrupt? It's an old question, a very old question. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century was asking this same question. He said there must have been a time when no physical things existed, but something can't come from nothing. That was his view. It's just been repeated by us.
Something can come from nothing, and that's what physicists are now telling us. I could give you, you asked me to give you a layman's interpretation. It would be a very, very layman's interpretation. When you have matter and antimatter and you put them together, they cancel each other out and give rise to nothing. What Lawrence Krauss is now suggesting is that if you start with nothing, the process can go into reverse and produce matter and antimatter. The theory is still being worked out. It's a very difficult theory, mathematical theory. I'm not qualified to answer the question, but what I am sure about is that it most certainly is not solved by postulating an intelligence, a creative intelligence, who raises even bigger questions of his own existence. That certainly is not going to be the answer, whatever else is.
George Pell.
Thank you. The trouble, well, there are many troubles with Richard's teachings, but a fundamental one is that he dumbs down God and he soups up nothing.
I work in something called string theory. That's what I do for a living. In fact, that's my day job. I'm the co-founder of string field theory, one of the main branches of string theory. The latest version of string theory is called M theory, M for membrane. So we now realize that strings can coexist with membranes. So the subatomic particles we see in nature, the quarks, the electrons, are nothing but musical notes on a tiny vibrating string. What is physics? Physics is nothing but the laws of harmony that you can write on vibrating strings. What is chemistry? Chemistry is nothing but the melodies you can play on interacting vibrating strings. What is the universe? The universe is a symphony of vibrating strings. And then what is the mind of God that Albert Einstein eloquently wrote about for the last 30 years of his life? We now, for the first time in history, have a candidate for the mind of God. It is cosmic music resonating through 11-dimensional hyperspace. So first of all, we are nothing but melodies. We are nothing but cosmic music played out on vibrating strings and membranes, obeying the laws of physics, which is nothing but the laws of harmony of vibrating strings. But why 11? It turns out that if you write a theory in 15, 17, 18 dimensions, the theory is unstable. It has what are called anomalies. It has singularities. It turns out that mathematics alone prefers the universe be in 11 dimensions.
You know what? I think I'm gonna go outside and get some fresh air.
There's an amazing amount we can see in the universe, and one of the greatest discoveries and surprises in the last generation, if not the last century, is that the dominant energy of the universe resides in empty space, in nothing. You take a bit of space, get rid of all the particles, all the radiation, and everything, and we find that that space weighs something, and we don't understand why. The fact that we can observe that at the present time is remarkable, and it's one of the things that led us and led me to write the book, because in fact it made us realize that essentially you can get a universe from nothing without any supernatural shenanigans, that basically by quantum mechanics and the laws of physics we understand in principle, an entire universe with 100 billion galaxies, each containing 100 billion stars, can come from nothing because its total energy could be zero, and therefore you don't need to literally violate any laws of physics to create a universe. And no, we don't know that for certain, but
By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth.
Under extreme conditions, general relativity and quantum theory allow time to behave like another dimension of space. This removes the distinction between time and space, and means the laws of evolution can also determine the initial state. The universe can spontaneously create itself out of nothing.
A type 1 civilization is truly planetary. They absorb all the light coming in from their mother star, and they control all planetary forms of energy. For example, they might be able to modify the weather. They might be able to control earthquakes and volcanoes. That's type 1. A type 2 civilization is stellar. They control the entire energy output of a star. Type 3 is galactic. They control the energy output of the entire galaxy. Now, to put things into perspective, Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers would be living in a type 1 civilization where they control all forms of planetary energy. They can simply rocket anywhere on the planet Earth at ease. Type 2 might be Star Trek. The Federation of Planets has only colonized a few neighboring planetary systems. They can barely manipulate the energy output of a single star. So the Federation of Planets would be type 2. But even Captain Picard and William Shatner live in fear of a type 3 galactic civilization, and that is the Borg, or the Empire of The Empire Strikes Back, or the aliens of Independence Day. They would be truly galactic in scope, able to harness the energy of black holes, for example. And there might even be type 4. Type 4 is extragalactic. For example, on Star Trek, we have the Q. The Q might be a candidate for a type 4 civilization. Now, what are we on this scale? We are type 0. That's where we rate.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
So I had the opportunity to talk to Bill Nye, the science guy at the Planetary Society.
Saw sticks.
I wanted to ask him about the origin of everything, so I did.
We can cover it in 2 words.
Okay.
Big Bang. Done.
Done. All right.
Mr. Nye, the next question is for you. How did the atoms that created the Big Bang get there?
This is the great mystery. You've hit the nail on the head. No, this is so, what was...
Today, Junior?
Is that at one point all matter was together and then it got hot and it expanded.
Or it was inherently hot, or something.
Okay.
So there's an unknowable time, the Planck time.
We think that that time is when the Big Bang happened?
Yeah, 10 to, well, you don't know, 10 to the minus 43rd seconds.
Ah, Lord God, behold, thou hast made the heaven and the earth by thy great power and stretched out arm, and there is nothing too hard for thee.
How did the atoms that created the Big Bang get there?
This is the great mystery. You've hit the nail on the head. No, this is so, what was before the Big Bang? This is what drives us. This is what we want to know. Let's keep looking. Let's keep searching.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made.
We need as many scientifically literate people as we can in our society so that when it's time to vote and make decisions about our future, we do it in an informed way, with science as the background. So thank you. This is fabulous. As far as my contribution, that's a very nice question. I think it's getting young people excited about science so that in the future we'll have scientifically literate people. And what we want is for people, it's not just the facts. The facts are great. They often change as we learn more, but and what we want is for people, it's not just the facts. The facts are great. They often change as we learn more, but
A fact. It's a thing that is known or proven to be true. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. Grace be with thee. Amen.
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from. And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter and a pen is made of material matter and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen? I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
Well, you got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right, you may take the rest of the minute.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was part of the format for the debate, so which question?
I want you to fill in the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay, so 2 questions. All right. Go ahead. All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant, because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it? If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it? You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter. So you have time, space, matter, created a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them. If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that form by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God. And that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter. If I could fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping, that's for certain. So that's the God that I worship. Thank you.